And we're back.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of But Wait, There's More. This is episode 11 here at Silver Wolf Comics and Games in Morgan City, Louisiana. I'm Hans. This is Ray, my color commentator. And last week we didn't have a studio audience. This week we do, so be warned. Also last week we left off with young Matt's character, Heldon, getting whipped to death for calling a goddess of pain and death him. That was entertaining for us in the group, a little bit. And so now he has no choice but to wait for the group to rescue them. Now, because Gotrek did not want to kill all the slaves the following day, Gotrek again being the battle rager dwarf,
He would have.
In the grand melee, he didn't want to slaughter everybody, and so he convinced the group to set the slaves free and start a slave revolt. And so the group goes back to the Death's Head Tavern and plans it out. They come up with this elaborate plan of assaulting this from two different directions, basically splitting the party into two groups and then getting two different sections at once, and then rotating around so that they get all of the cells open as quickly as possible.
Yes, and the beauty of it is we did it all over beer. So you can imagine the amount of planning that was involved in what are we going to do. It's like, all right, what do we do? Well, we jump the guards. Okay, now what? All right, we open the door. Simple, easy, anybody could do it. God, every movie that any player has ever seen, you can do that. And then someone brings in dice, and things, well, they don't go according to plan quite so much.
It wasn't bad. Y'all actually did fairly well. I mean,
it could have been quicker, but it wasn't.
Right. But at the same time, y'all still achieved your goal. You killed the guards, set the prisoners free, got them out of the anti-magic cells, including one very beat-up young sorcerer who joined the group half naked. And at this point, you have a collection of prisoners trying to escape from this city with our intrepid band of adventurers leading the vanguard. And I tried to make it very cinematic. They are completely surrounded in this underground city. They're being attacked from all sides, and the group is just fighting through the forward front, whereas you have different groups of slaves fighting on the left flank, the right flank, and the rear, including Gotrek and some other people that they met along the way. And depending on how well the group did fighting through the front, it would also affect how the rest of the revolt was going. Now, thankfully for them, they did very well. And they were able to fight through several waves and eventually face off with the High Priest of Loviatar. And through many shenanigans and fireballs and lightning bolts and whatnot.
There was quite the panoply of explosions along the way, and there were some tight spots where everybody was a bit nervous, like, are we actually going to get out of this? Are we going to survive, or are we all going to die here? Because, I mean, we're in the middle of a slave revolt. Not everybody is actually going according to plan. Some people just want to run away. Other people want to kill as many people as they can because of whatever they've done to them in the past. And then there's us. What are we doing? Trying to deal with the people right in front of us so that they don't eat us.
Well, and this is actually where Matt really shined, and I was glad that I saved his character, because in spite of the fact that he had to hit himself in the nuts every time he wanted to cast a spell, he did very well, because it seems like ranged spellcaster is kind of his niche. It's something that came more naturally to him than melee fighters. And he was dropping spells like fireballs and whatnot, and just doing some serious damage. And it was like very impressive. Good job, I'm glad I let this one, saved this character, because who knows what he would have come up with next. I don't know, a gnome barbarian. Um, but so yeah, that happens, and they finish the fight. Yeah, that would have been strange. Anyway, they finish the fight, and at this point, the slave revolt has wiped out the entire city guard. I mean, it is a massive fight, and all that's left are the slaves, the people who did not join the fight, and these folks. To wit, a lot of the slaves decided to make a run for it and just flee as fast as possible. Others stuck around. The group, after such a grueling set of encounters, went back to the Death's Head Inn to try and rest up before they left the Underdark, seeing as how there wasn't anybody left to fight. They figured it was safe to rest and recharge the batteries, and they'll be fine. Now, in the midst of this resting period, they decide to go inspect the Temple of Loviatar, see if there's anything in there. It's a temple to a god, so maybe there's some magical items for them to acquire, some gold or loot or gems, what have you. And
anything that's not nailed down, really.
yeah, like they're adventurers. It takes money to buy spells and to buy gear and healing potions and whatnot. So,
condoms.
That too, unless you have Caliban's magic dispenser.
Yeah, now that he's got his magic dispenser, he's well and truly safe.
Yes. So, sorry, the image of that came back into my head.
It does kind of slap you, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, a few of the menfolk decide to go explore the temple. I say menfolk because the women of the group decided to not leave the Death's Head Inn. They were all going to have a little confab and not explore a potentially dangerous and or trapped location. So
I think there was some small amount of talk of, don't worry, little lady, stay here and you'll be safe. The typical chauvinism raises his ugly head, but no, they didn't come along. And honestly, we think that considering that he has enchanted items Joe has enchanted items in his establishment that allow you to sit in the room and watch things from afar, that probably they were sitting there watching us on TV and laughing at us the whole time. Which would be about right.
Well, it wasn't the case, but it could have been. I mean, he can't get closed-circuit TV in the Temple of Loviatar. That would have been really pricey.
Yeah, well, that room anyway.
You'll find out about that room momentarily. So they go in there, and they open the front doors, and it's a rectangular building with a big central room, like a feasting hall, and then hallways that lead around, and rooms that kind of branch off of the hallways. And at this point, they don't hear anybody, they don't see anybody. It's empty.
Quiet, seems to be abandoned. Perfect.
Well, and normally when you explore something, a dungeon or a temple, especially a temple to an evil deity, you would take it slowly, looking for traps. You would think.
You would think.
Now, the majority do this. One individual
did not.
No. I can guess that most of you know who that individual might be. But to allay any uncertainty, it was Heldon, this brand new character. Well, he decides to be slick, and all I can think of was that he was trying to get ahead of everybody and get the loot for himself, because he's got a brand new character that doesn't have any gear, and so he figures if he can get to it before anybody else, he can have the pick of whatever magic items that he comes across.
Yeah, which honestly, it would I think between us all, we would have made sure to outfit him with something to protect himself, at least.
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't know what was going through his mind when he made the decision that he did, but that's my best guess.
But yeah, but dashing off down a hallway, okay, that's bad enough. I'm going to get there first. All right. But when you turn yourself invisible first.
Yes, so before he even runs off, he immediately turns himself invisible and takes off sprinting down one hall and around a corner and does a double move to go even further. So he's trying to run ahead, like literally run ahead of everybody so he can go explore and do something. Well, the problem is he not once checked for traps.
Nor did he tell any of us where he was going or what he had in mind. So we didn't even think to look for him. It's just, hey, where's so-and-so? And he's not there
Where's
anymore.
the new guy? Oh, well, maybe he left. I don't know. They don't know him hardly at all at this point. All they hear is a whoop and a short scream followed closely by a second whoop. And Fergus, walks down the hall. He goes to the left, following where young Matt had gone.
Same trail.
Same trail.
Nobody home.
And he kind of looks down the hall and nobody's there. Well, Matt had fallen into a trap where the trap doors go down. He falls in, and there's spikes at the bottom, poisoned spikes. And then the doors go up and lock.
Bastards.
So now, and he actually saved himself. He takes the initial damage, but he's able to cast levitate or something on himself to keep himself above the spikes. The issue becomes he can't open the door. So he's floating around inside this spike trap, hoping somebody will come rescue him because he can't get out without hurting himself. Now, what the rest of the party is doing, Fergus goes around the corner and decides to explore some of the rooms that are before this trap. He goes into the high priest's chamber and finds a jewelry box with some gems in it and a ring. Now the ring, he kind of has a feeling that it's sort of magical, so he just kind of leaves it in the box and is like, okay, well, we'll have our wizard inspect this later.
We're going to check it out before we do anything foolish like fool with it. Because sometimes you have a gem box. Okay, well, some people are sneaky and nasty. There are rings that don't do anything, but once you put them on, there's a needle in it and it poisons you. It's especially in a building like this with the people who work and live here, you expect crap like that. So you try to be careful, ginger about how you move anything, because you figure everything's trapped.
Well, you figure everything.
Well, I'm paranoid about that. It keeps the short people alive longer.
And then we had Mac, one of our rogues, and Caliban, our monk, as well as Turin, our ranger, who went off to the right to go explore some rooms. Now, at this point, Turin still has his slippers of spider climbing, so most of the stuff that he's doing, he's walking along on the ceiling, being safe, figuring if there's any kind of traps that are on the ground, they won't get him. Smart. Clever use of game mechanics. Let me tell you, that man loves his spider climbing boots all the time. Anyway, and they check some rooms and don't find a whole lot until Caliban enters a room. In the room is essentially they were joking about finding, someone trussed up in very compromising position in a room. Being that Loviatar is the goddess of pain and death, they might be into some kinky stuff.
Well, yeah, they always say, they bring in the dancing girls too, so you figure the dressing room's got to be around here somewhere.
Right. Well, Caliban opens one door, and because I'm funny like that, it's like, sure enough, there's a young, very nubile woman trussed up. What do you do? He's like, well, I join her and close the door.
Is it, you have to excuse me for a moment, click, and then the music starts playing.
Yeah. Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
Pretty much.
So Caliban is now preoccupied.
In flagrante delicto,
Yeah.
or lick something.
Who knows what went on in there?
Yeah, no telling.
So I, of course, made him roll the athletics, acrobatics, animal handling, and constitution. And he did fairly well. Not his most impressive work, but certainly not a failure. I think they both enjoyed themselves.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it's like I couldn't tell honestly from the predicament that I was in around the bend.
Well, yeah, that you were about to get in. Now, at this point, they had almost gone completely around the temple. Excuse me. Sometimes I get tongue-tied. On both sides, and Fergus had exited the room and went down the hall in the same direction Matt had. Well, and he's rolling perception. Every time he moves so far forward, he rolls perception to try and find traps. Well,
I'm in a hallway.
unfortunately, Ray's dice don't always agree
No,
with
they
him.
hate me sometimes, and I was in a hallway. I'm walking down the middle of the hallway, and the hallway is going, come closer, come this way, right this way, and up there you go, and
he falls in
in
the
the
trap.
same damn trap.
Now, what's funny is Matt is hovering here. And then Ray comes walking along and falls through. And nearly impales Matt again on the spikes by falling on top of him. Now, luckily for Matt, he was able to make a dexterity saving throw and kind of like glide out the way. And then Fergus lands on the spikes and very quickly and smartly inserts his shield between him and the spikes. Again, clever use of game mechanics. This is one of those situations where, as a DM, I could have said, no, that isn't how it works. You still have to make saving throws all the time because you're standing on these spikes, but that didn't make sense. Like, he has a big shield. Why wouldn't he just put his shield down and stand on the shield? Now, he would still be locked in this trap, and if nobody let him out, he would just expire due to hunger. But he has somebody else with him, Matt. Now, again, clever use of game mechanics. Matt figures out if he stands on Fergus's shoulders, he no longer has to concentrate on this levitate spell that he's holding, and now he can cast a spell to, I can't remember the name of the spell, but essentially it's you take something and you can move it up or down. And so he grabs the doors and... that's right. He cast levitate again, but on the doors, and he made the doors go down because you can control the direction that it goes. And so he forced the trap doors open so that they could then climb out, which I was very impressed with. Yeah, he got himself in a bind, but with Fergus's help, he was able to get them out of the bind. So good on him. It's like, you messed up and got yourself in a pickle, but...
Well played.
At least you got out.
Yeah, we're not still in there.
Yeah. Now, around another corner and further down a hall, Mac, our rogue, is in a similar predicament. Him and Turin are kind of going down the hall together, Turin being on the ceiling and Mac on the floor, and they're rolling perception, but they're rolling poorly. Which is always kind of fun for me when I have traps set up and they can't find it.
Yeah, sitting there behind the Game Master screen, scheming. Yes, yes. Another 5 feet, another 5 feet closer. Jerk.
Well, and so Mac doesn't notice the trap and falls in, but as a reaction, Turin tries to catch him. Good idea, but then it's where the dice screw him. I made him make a strength saving throw to see if he's able to hold on to and remain attached to the ceiling. Well, he manages to grab Mac, but in the process, he gets pulled down into the trap as well. So now we've got 4 out of 6 people in traps. The 6th person being Krontis. He's got his own little side thing, and I'll get into that later. It's
important.
Yeah.
It's important.
And
he
so
needs his own time in the limelight.
Yeah. Well, it was a special moment. And so we've got 4 out of 6 people trapped. One of the 6 is getting some nookie.
Typical.
Which is typical for him. Any chance he gets, he takes it.
And for anybody who is going to say, "Hey, wait a minute, he's a monk. He hasn't taken his vows yet."
His monastery was destroyed before that could happen. So he's not tied down with any kind of celibacy.
That word.
Yes.
Celibacy. Thank you from the third row.
It's bad tonight, folks.
It's a very nice hat.
So yeah, he's not tied down by any vows like that. Now, as far as how Mac and Turin got out of the trap, Turin, he just kind of walks up the wall and he's safe. You know, he's got the spider climbing boots. He took the initial damage. It's not a big deal. Mac, on the other hand, is in a bit of a pickle.
Now, what would have really been sad is if he'd managed to catch a hold of him, but instead of falling loose from the ceiling, if Mac had pulled him out of the boots.
Yes.
And they were still stuck to the ceiling, which would have been amusing. And I really do think that Ricky would have been really cheesed about it. But that didn't actually happen.
Well, I kind of tied that into a saving throw. If he'd have critically failed, that would have happened. Luckily for him, he did not critically fail. And then so now Mac is trying to do acrobatic saving throws to kind of wedge himself in a corner and like wall walk up the corner so that he's not on the spikes anymore. And that's going on when finally Fergus and Heldon, having freed themselves, come around the corner and they hear muffled yells coming from the floor and figure that
another one.
somebody else has gotten them stuck in a pickle. And Fergus eventually finds the switch to deactivate the trap. The door's open. They climb out.
It's a very ornate bronze switch on the wall, and it says off. Typical.
And so from there, they continue the exploration.
We find some stuff. We pretty much walk in on Caliban. It's like, oh, yeah, he's at it again.
Yeah, he's busy, and they go on and find the treasure room, where they find a few items. The important one being Dirty Duncan's Dwarven Demolisher. Dirty Duncan's Dwarven Demolisher is a warhammer that can be thrown, and once it's thrown and hit its target, will magically teleport back to your hand. Now, seeing as this is your weapon,
yeah, it's like the Dirty Duncan was something of a famous person once upon a time. Back when the Drow were attempting to invade Mithril Hall. Any folks out there that have read Mr. Salvatore's books will be familiar with this battle, this long battle that went on for quite a while. Well, the thing is now these are all mountain dwarfs, but now the thing is along comes Duncan. Now Duncan was a hill dwarf of all people. You know, he's not quite as gruff, not quite as big and nasty as some of the mountain dwarfs, but he threw in with them because where he lived, naturally, if the Drow ever took Mithril Hall, his neighbors, needless to say, would be giving him grief. So he threw in with the Mithril Hall dwarfs to fight. But the thing was, he's a hill dwarf. You know, I mean, he's used to living on the surface and so on. So he's in there, and they're off in a battle, and they're fighting these suckers that got spells and darkness and all this other stuff. Well, he manages to get turned around in the tunnels and get separated from the main battle. And he kind of follows his nose around the Underdark for a while until he finally comes up behind a Drow raiding party. which has a few drow clerics. Now, naturally, he's not really the greatest of tacticians, so they said, but what it was is, you see Mithril Hall dwarves, they all wear armor all the time. I mean, it's heavy stuff because they build and work their own mines. And, well, he's up there, he's a leather jerkin and a kilt. And he just charges into the back of these drow, screaming and yelling, waving his hammer around, knocking everybody left and right. And in the ensuing melee, becomes the first dwarf to ever teabag a drow cleric and get away with it to tell the tale. Now, the thing is Moradin himself, on his throne up there having a beer, was laughing so hard because if a cleric of Lolth, if that actually happened, it's like he did that, and she knew about it. She probably was probably right there at her. So Moradin was laughing so hard that he actually fell off his chair and said, I gotta do something for the lad. And he imbued this hammer of his with certain abilities. Now, the thing is now here it is in the fullness of time. Now, as far as I understand, is Duncan, or Dirty Duncan, as a lot of his friends call him, is still alive. I mean, he's actually a farmer. But his hammer's been passed down because it's a very useful weapon. It's a powerful weapon. It's the kind of weapon where you can't be very stealthy. Because in each face of the hammer, as you look at it, there is a big sigil that is the dwarven letter D. So whenever you actually hit someone with it, if you smash them in the breastplate, it puts a big imprint of a D on your chest. Well, the thing is if you throw it, it's a thrower, it's designed for it. When you throw a weapon like this, you actually do more damage than if you're actually just going to run up and hit someone with it. The problem is because this is a magically imbued weapon that for all time, until the day it finally turns back to dust, is that when you throw it, you hear in Duncan's voice, you throw the hammer and the hammer itself will actually yell, give him the D! And off it goes. And now this is not exactly something that you want to do if you're sneaking around in the dark. Because it gives away your position and it makes everybody else in the party laugh quite a bit.
And that's happened. Later on, they try and be stealthy, and Fergus is like, oh, I've got a great idea. And he throws this weapon, and then, give him the D!
And it echoes throughout the entire complex. Every critter in the place is like, what's that? Did you hear that? We better go investigate. Oh, shite.
Anyway, but that's for later. So, Fergus discovers Dirty Duncan's Dwarven Demolisher and gets himself a new weapon.
Yeah, it was very surprising because it has been missing for a while.
Yeah. And that was a case of Ray just coming up with a story, and I found it so entertaining, I took it and ran with it and made a weapon that was part of his lore. And like the
page by page, it's just every time you tell stories like this. I mean, above board and whatnot. We're playing in a store. I mean, there are other people in here that have nothing to do with the game, and it's just kind of funny. You notice at the corner of your eye when you're doing this, you'll see people that are playing a completely different game, reading a book, shopping, talking, and they will stop and bust out laughing, or you'll see they'll be sitting there trying to hide a smile because they're like, what did he just say? I don't believe I just heard that.
But because of his storytelling, and it was so entertaining, and Fergus was kind of due for a weapon upgrade. I made the weapon and I put it there, and if they made it through and found it, he would have the quadruple D. Your face when you got that weapon, when you saw it, it lit up. It was great.
Look, it can't be. It's Dirty Duncan's Dwarven Demolisher. It can't be. It's been missing for a century. And everybody else is like, you get it tired of me. You have too much fun with this.
Which is one reason why I like them. So they do that. They collect some other things, and they eventually leave the temple. Now, going back to Krontis, while the party is doing... Yes, Krontis is actually in attendance tonight.
He's grinning at us,
and-
plotting.
and-
We
and-
know he is.
and nodding his head and rubbing his hands in glee. So while everybody's doing their thing, getting caught in traps, finding magical what's-its, he goes into the main feasting hall, and he just wants to pick up a whip. He wants to pick up one of the whips that he used to beat Matt, and so he finds one. He picks it up and he looks at it, and then but on the wall there's this beautiful tapestry of Loviatar, just gorgeous. Just she's in her full regalia or lack thereof, and
barbed
just-
wire and 2 cups.
something. And he looks at her, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but he essentially worshipped her and said, I'm going to take this and use it to bring pain to others.
So that I may do more homage for you in my travels or something.
Yeah, so that he could, thank you, so that he could pay homage to her in his travels. Well, Loviatar, I was like,
a perfect opportunity.
he did what? He worshipped a dark goddess? So the tapestry animates, and it shifts, and it looks at him and smiles, and it reaches out like her she kind of almost
The essence.
the essence of her reaches out and touches the whip and imbues it with some of her power, and so now he's got a magical weapon, and in the process he goes from being a true neutral character to a chaotic evil. So he has a complete alignment shift, and oh man, he has had so much fun with that character since then, because before that, Krontis was just a rogue who did damage, and he was still learning how to play the game. Well, when this happens, and he does the role playing, and he takes the whip and says, I take this whip so that I can pay homage to you in my travels, and now it's like brilliant golden opportunity to really connect with the player and help him connect to his character. And so Loviatar recognizes this and blesses his weapon, and in fact I make him take at least one level in cleric to represent that he has become a worshipper of Loviatar. Now how far he goes with levels in rogue and levels in cleric, that's kind of up to him, but I wanted it to be like a very profound change in him and his character, and to represent that I made him take a level in cleric, because that's what he was acting as. Like, to this day, everything he does, he doesn't care if he gets hurt or somebody else gets hurt. So long as somebody gets hurt, it's always in the name of Loviatar. Everything. He's always praising Loviatar, and it's like, this is great. He's into his character, he's enjoying it, and
we're all watching him closely.
Yeah, the rest of the party is kind of like, well, you're not in here yet. Peanut gallery again. But
Said Booger in aisle 3. You gotta watch him.
And yeah, he's gung ho. He has no qualms about throwing himself into a sticky situation, because he is a devoted priest of Loviatar. So long as somebody is in pain, including himself, he's doing his job. So and as a DM, I notice this, and I'm seeing this, and it's getting the wheels going of, I wonder where I'm going to take this.
How creative can we be, and what is going to burn in the process?
Yes. Anyway, so that happens with Krontis. The party at that time just kind of notices, like, he seems a little bit different, but he hasn't done anything quite yet. So they go back to the Death's Head Inn and like, hey, we've got some stuff to inspect. Here, Ito, inspect this ring. Now, I had little note cards written up for their magic items, and this ring was special. Now, when Ito inspects it, I give him the ring because he passed his check to find out what it was. And he looks at the card and he says, he says, well, I hand the ring to the sorcerer and said, here, you can use this because it gives you +2 to your charisma. Now, in D&D, sorcerers, their spellcasting ability is based on their charisma. So the higher that is, the stronger and more powerful they are. So he hands Matt the ring, and I look at Matt and say, do you put on the ring? He says, yeah! Sticks on the ring.
Now, to this point, now, there was no warning on any of this. None of this was ever discussed above board, beyond the fact, okay, he found a ring, da-da. It was just, at this point, now everything that this ring does was written on this card.
Yes.
And more of a quote is, yes, it's like he took the card and he's like, he does the scry on the ring, the item, to see exactly what it does. And what he said was, this will add to your charisma. And some other things.
Yes.
And he just left it at that. Now, honestly, all of us who are a little bit older and a little more paranoid around game masters, when you say some other things, some almost deliberately vague things like that, you're going to say to yourself, what are the other things? Now, I was thinking this. I'm sure everybody at the table is like, I wonder what the other things are. And then someone says, do you put the ring on? And he says, sure. And actually did the whole, I put the ring on.
Yeah.
At which point,
you are now a woman. Very beautiful woman. At this point, he now had something on the order of 22 on his charisma score, which is insanely high.
he literally glowed. It just, was it Giselle Bundchen with spotlights?
Great tracks of land.
Great tracts of land.
Yeah. Now, so he is now a beautiful woman with great tracts of land, and he has -2 to his constitution. And I don't know, maybe it was me being mean, or I just wanted to see if he would blindly put the ring on. And because cursed items are a thing in D&D. You can run across armor that will change your alignment. You can run across an axe that will make you a berserker, and anytime you get attacked by enemies, you will attack anything within 60 feet, including your own party members. And so I just made this ring as like, okay, he doesn't always look where he's going. How can I teach him to kind of check ahead? Because I tried to explain that kind of thing to him, guide him along and help him be a better role player. But to that point, he hadn't seemed to take it in completely.
No, not really.
And so I thought, well, the ring could be fun. It makes him, and it wasn't so much mean as trying to teach the lesson and allow him to expand in his way of role playing, because he was trying to just be a certain type of character,
trying to be the exact carbon copy sorcerer, and it's like, make it your own. You're the sorcerer. Don't just do what the book says. Fill it out, enjoy it.
Yeah, and so kind of like with Krontis, where he provided me an opportunity to make him kind of change up the way he was playing and really get into this character, I tried to, maybe too forcefully, do that with Matt, and giving him this ring that turned him into a woman, really put him outside of his comfort zone, but at the same time, make him better at what he was trying to do. With being so high in charisma now, he was even better at the type of character. Like, I made that aspect of the character, the aspect that he was really focusing on, I made it stronger. So it was...
I mean, by rights, he should have been able to wrap 2/3 of the world around his finger.
Yes. I mean, he could have probably, if done properly, he could have seduced just about anything.
With those? Are you kidding?
Right. Well, you know, his with his ability score so high, his checks were base 12. Like he added
Effortless.
12. He added 12 to anything he rolled.
Effortless.
So you know, it was a give and take kind of thing. I was trying to push him in a direction that I thought would help him grow as a player, but assist him along the way.
And the thing is now this curse, now this is not an illusion. It's not a man that looks like a woman. You know, there's no surprises or anything. But I mean, it's honest to good. That's a real woman, and it's just, well, where'd the skinny kid go? Oh boy, look at those.
And at this point, he had only been wearing a loincloth.
So, wow, gravity defying. But we quickly had to grab luckily Joe keeps a large number of bowls, finger bowls, you know, peanuts, pretzels, whatever. We shook a couple of the bowls out and put them on there just for the sake of decency. You know, it's a little protection anyway. They fit marvelously too. I mean, it was like an air seal, just boom, and they stayed.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Okay. Anyway.
And so that was a thing that happened, and it'll come into play later on as well. But from there, the party rests up. Those guys, the cleric Rithian heals up the people that had fallen into the spike trap, and then they rest. They take a long rest.
A well-deserved siesta.
And we'll get into what they experience the following morning when they wake up in the next episode, because we are running out of time, and as always, but wait, there's more. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like, share, subscribe to the channel. Yeah, we'll have information about Silver Wolf Comics and Games in the link below, to include our Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram accounts. Moving up in the world. And if there is something that you didn't enjoy, you know, obviously hit the dislike button, but go ahead, please let us know what it is that you dislike.
This is a work in progress, and all of the input we get can help things.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't like this. Well, okay, don't watch it. But if you just put, I don't like this, and we can't fix it if we don't know what's broken.
And we want to. We want to try and put out, you know, quality entertainment. So, you know, leave us a note. But that being said, y'all have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye.